Welcome back to our home renovation. We recently got our cabinets installed and now we're already ready to move on to countertops. This is a big moment for us, and I know a lot of you guys have been waiting to see what we chose for a countertop choice. A lot of you guys suggested concrete countertops. That's definitely something we considered. We looked at every DIY option possible that we could think of and really considered all the pros and cons, and in the end we settled for butcherblock countertops. This is a solid European birch butcherblock countertop, 1.5 inches thick. This one is my first piece I gotta cut. You gotta notice it's kind of small, and we have another piece here. We're gonna be joining them. So this is a little bit scary for me because A, I've never installed or even worked with butcherblock countertop before, never had any experience with it. I know it's just wood, but it's expensive and I don't want to make any mistakes here. There's a reason I'm doing it in 2 small pieces. I know there's options probably to get bigger ones, but for what I want to do, this is the best option. I'm going to be starting with this big one on the floor right here and fitting it to this section here. Now, part of our design when laying out this kitchen was I wanted a countertop that would run straight into the window and act as the windowsill. That's going to not only make the countertop feel deeper here, it's going to give me more space. We can put plants there, we can put whatever we need. It's just space. You ever notice on your countertop how close the sink is to the back of the wall or the backsplash? It's usually very tight. It's hard to clean back there. We just don't like that. So we made our windowsill at the height of our cabinets so that the countertop can just stand straight in, and it's going to come right up to the window, almost at the top of the bottom of the window here, and it's going to look really cool built-in feature. That's why I bought this kind of really large island butcherblock piece. This one is 39 inches wide, and I need that so that I could cut out where it goes into the windowsill. So I'm going to go ahead and take some time to sketch out my cutout, and I'll come back when I'm done. So what I did was mark some marks on the front, 2 feet, 3 feet, and then I marked them back here at 2 feet and 3 feet, so that when I measure, because I know the depth of my countertop, I'm measuring in a straight line. You want to make sure you're measuring in a straight line, because if you are eyeballing it and say your tape measure is off a little, that changes your measurement actually drastically if you're not holding it straight. So you want to make sure your tape measure is totally perpendicular to your board. So that's why I was marking out the front, in case you were wondering. I was checking my corner and I noticed that it wasn't square, and that's probably because of drywall compound feathering out. So I brought this drywall in here because it had 2 square edges to check it out, and yeah, it just tapers this way, tapers this way. So I'm going to cut the countertop to hopefully fit that corner a little tighter because I don't want this gap like that. I cut some scrap wood to throw under here to hold this up while I start my cuts. Alright, you guys ready for the first test fit? I know I am. So, let's try it out. I wanted to make sure I had expansion room on either side. I do, looking good. A little less than 1/4 inch. That's going to be covered with the trim on the side. A nice little gap in there, and that's going to be filled with caulk. I wanted to make sure it doesn't touch the window. Fine, even gap on the side. Again, I want to leave a little bit of room because this is wood. This has to move. So I'm going to leave a little gap, expansion gap, and I can slide it down a little more if I have to because I left myself play in the window here. But this is actually looking really good. Whew, that was scary, but we got it done. Now, we're not out of the water yet. We still gotta cut the other one to fit. That one's gonna be really easy. It's literally just cutting it to length. But this edge has like a little micro bevel on it. You can see it's a little bit round over. And we don't want it rounded. We want the two countertops to butt up tight against each other. I might have to shave the edge of this countertop off. Just shave it. Now I have to apologize because I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. And I just cut off the edge. It went pretty successfully. You can see it right here. It is just a nice thin piece. Took off maybe an 1/8 inch altogether. I just wanted to make sure I got all those rounded edges off. And now my end is straight. It's not clean, but it's straight. I have a little bit of burrs on the top. I'm not gonna worry about those until the two countertops are joined and glued, and then I'll sand them down. So I'm looking at the top, getting it ready to cut, and I noticed a major problem. This board has a big cup in it. Okay, you see it? You see the gap under the middle? Huge. So this board is warped, and that's not good. Right now it's not feasible to go to the store and swap it out. I'm gonna try to make the best of this one. I know it's risky, but I'm gonna try it because I think it's just a moisture issue. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, move forward, cutting it to length. Once it's cut to length and I'm happy with it, I'm going to wet it on this side, the concave side, and see if I can get the wood to expand and flatten out. If we can get it to flatten out and get it secured in place, then it should stay flat. I think right now it's just unbalanced, probably from storage. I have no idea. I think we can save it and flatten it out. And if it tends to want to cup again, or if we can't get it flat, maybe I'll get some angle iron and screw it underneath to help pull the bow out of it. Aside from that cup, it looks okay. It's a little snugger than I expected. Well, I'm going to take a break. I'll come back to this in a minute. I'll try to get it straightened out, smoothed out, and I'll show you guys if I can make some progress. Let me show you where we're at before we start. You can see that's a straight edge, and you can see the light under it, maybe a 1/4 inch gap. So it's the next morning and I still have a cup in the countertop. It didn't work out with the water on the top, and maybe I needed more water. It honestly evaporated very quickly. You really need to wet it and try to expand the top so it can flatten back out. What I did was flipped it over. This is the bottom side now. I'm gonna try to get this side drying, but I think I'm gonna turn to a more strong approach where I'm actually gonna be cutting some angle iron to put on the bottom and force the bow out of it. This is not ideal because in forcing the bow out, I could stress it and I don't want to crack the top. It's a possibility, but I'm going to try it. I'm taking the risk because I honestly don't have a long time to leave these in the way. They take up a lot of space and I'd like to get the countertop started. I went out to the barn, looked around, and I found some bed frame, old metal bed frame. I'm going to be cutting that up to make some pieces of metal to hopefully attach underneath there. And I do think that over time it'll even out. I think it's a moisture problem, so it will straighten out on its own if properly sealed and installed and stored, you know, when it's all done. This is more or less how I'm going to attach these. I have them laid out where I wanted them. First I'm going to pre-drill some holes into the metal and then I'll screw them on. I'm going to drill an oversized hole so that, and I'm going to use a wide head screw, and that way it can kind of float And that way the wood can kind of expand, contract without too much pressure on those screws. I don't know if these are going to be strong enough even. The steel could end up bending before the wood. So, we'll see. That's better looking. The metal, it did make it better. It's not perfect yet. It still has a bow. It's pulling the metal. It's that strong. So, but it is less. It's not that big gap. It's getting better. So I figure with the metal wanting to straighten out, so that metal's pulling it straight, and then we're going to apply more moisture through the top via the towels. I wet these old towels, put them on top here, and so that'll hold moisture against the wood. I know this seems counterproductive. You never want a wet butcher block, but if we can wet this side, get it to expand while the bottom side is trying to pull straight, maybe we can get it better. All right guys, time for a quick update. These have been sitting for a few hours, several hours probably, absorbing the water. And check this out. It's actually getting better. There's a little gap. It's a lot more even and much smaller. Remember that before was almost 1/4 inch. It's getting late now, and I just checked this again, and I think we're finally getting there. It is almost dead flat between the metal on the bottom, the water on top. I'm not sure if I should keep the water on it or not, but we're getting there. I mean, this thing is looking good, and I'm afraid of it cupping again. I'm not sure how to keep it stabilized at this point. The whole point of this is to equalize the wood. There was one side had more moisture than the other, so we had a expansion and contraction. By wetting this top surface, it's causing the top of the wood to expand, get wider, and making it spread out, which flattens the board. Now it should stay flat if it can dry and maintain the same moisture content from the top to the bottom. That's going to be the tricky part. I'm really tempted to screw them together, glue them and screw them while it's flat, so that this board and this board will be joined and it kind of becomes one piece of wood. I'm just not sure if it's wise to do that because this one obviously has expanded. I don't know how that's going to react. I don't know if I should wait for this to dry out and see if it's going to hold its shape. I'm not sure. You can see. Look at, can't see. It's essentially nothing. We got a little touch here, and honestly, that could just be sanded off. Could just be this front lip is a little extra swollen. There's essentially, you know, no gap. Very, very minor. So I got this one flipped over now. You guys can see my brackets, and this one we also flipped over, and I'm starting to pocket hole it. I'm going to use pocket hole screws to join them together when they're in place. We're kind of making this up as we go, so we're hoping for the best, but I'm going to go ahead and drill my pocket holes. I tried putting them on the chunks of wood, the individual chunks, that way I wouldn't be screwing in between boards on the other side. I want to do whatever I can to avoid any splitting anywhere. We were going to try to glue and screw this on the floor, but this whole thing together is probably 200 pounds or more, especially now that I saturated that with water. But we're afraid that between the two of us, or three of us if we get Belle's help, that if we're trying to lift this into place, it might flex and we might snap our line. I don't want to ruin the screws. I don't want to ruin the glue. I'm really afraid of that. So I think what we're going to do is try to do it in place, which is going to be tricky in its own way, but less risk of messing this up. I think what we're going to do is oil the bottom of both of them since they're flipped over. We'd like to get a coat of oil on each one just to try to seal the bottom a little bit before putting it in place. I'm going to do my best to keep the oil away from the edges that we're going to glue. We do not want any oil on there or the glue won't stick to the wood right. Then we can get them in place on the counter, on the cabinets, and see how they're going to go from there. Once again, we're using pure tung oil. This stuff is natural. It's FDA approved for food contact. It's totally safe. This is not the tung oil finish that you buy at the big box stores. This is pure tung oil. I'm going to cut it with citrus solvent, about 50-50. That's going to let it absorb into the wood easier. And we're just going to do a coat over the whole thing.
Look at those nice colors popping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the bottom. It's still cool to see.
It gives you an idea of what the top's going to look like.
Yeah.
Are you able? Okay.
There we go.
This is looking really good, sitting nice and flat, but before I get too carried away with this other piece, I've decided to cut some pieces of wood to put right up on top of here. My idea is to kind of block up these areas so I have a better spot to attach the countertop to. So let me get all my blocking in place. So we got our blocking in place. You can see it's flush with the top of the cabinets. Again, this is just so we can screw through it into the countertop without just this being so flexible. I'm pre-drilling my holes a little bit bigger than I need, actually a lot bigger. And the reason is, again, wiggle room, just like we did with the metal. We want there to be a little bit of play so that if the wood moves, because wood does expand and contract, this screw has a little bit of play. It's not dead tight in there. And that'll help the countertop not bow also. My way. That's looking good. Now let's get this one. Okay, hold on a second. We just want it totally covered. I'm not afraid of this because there might be some unevenness, so we want to make sure it's nice and thick. And I think that's looking good. I think we did it. I went ahead and pocket holed those together. You can see my screw holes in here. And it went okay. Actually, it went pretty badly, but this isn't bad for a beginner. This is a raised edge where they come together. It's the best I could. We put some extra wood glue in there to help fill up any imperfections, but it is raised. I'm not worried about it. As warped as this top was, I'm happy that it's sitting this flat. Part of the problem was the way pocket holes work. There was a slight gap in between them when we screwed it in. And if there's a gap, the pocket holes will pull the one piece up. And that's exactly what it did. It pulled it up. but I was kind of at the point of no return, so I'm going with it. We're going to sand it smooth and it'll be fine. We're going to go ahead and start screwing this to the cabinet using those blocks that we put in earlier and just screwing upwards. I wish I had something a little bit shorter than this, but I don't, so I'm going to use these. And even though they look like they're going to shoot up through the countertop, they're going to be like this. I hope I don't regret that one too. Well guys, I'm ready to start cutting openings for my sink and my stovetop. It's a little bit scary. Last night I got them sketched out exactly where I want them. I think I'm good. And I'm going to go ahead and get them cut open. I'm going to screw some blocking underneath it to keep it from falling through when I get it cut out. I think I'm actually done sanding the top. It is super smooth. Amazingly, you can't feel this seam. I went over the whole top with a sander and I got the whole thing as smooth as I could. It's super smooth. So now I just got to dust it off and we're going to start oiling it. We're finally making progress. And it's amazing how much Ashley was talking about, how much countertop we end up cutting away. You spend all this money for the counter and there's nothing left of it. Now you remember we screwed the counter down here and over here, just beyond here. But I was kind of concerned about these large spans without anything holding it. And so what I'm going to do is cut some metal, like I did the angle iron for the other part. And I'm going to make some brackets that I can hook to the cabinet and hook it here and hook it here. And that way it'll be secured right in the middle. Less likely for these to move. Got my two brackets. I made a little tiny one for the front. And I made this larger one for the back. This already had a slot in it, part of the bed frame. So I'm going to take advantage of that. Screwed into the cabinet through the small holes. And screwed into the top and the big hole. And again, this will allow the countertop to kind of flex a little if needed. So there's one bracket. Hooked to the wall, hooked to the counter. Here's the other one. Don't know if you can see it. Guys, look at this. Look at this seam. Remember how bad that looked? So good. We are ready and clean. I'm gonna start oiling soon. Look at this countertop. This is gonna change pretty drastically. Obviously it's gonna get a lot darker. I almost wish it wouldn't. It looks really great. I actually love this light tone of wood, but you have to oil it. There's no way around that. So I think it'll look good too darker, but it's looking so nice. I really cleaned up everything I could, sanded it, cleaned it, dusted it. We're gonna really focus on these end grains inside here and obviously just saturate the top. Try not to make a big mess, but we're gonna oil this and just keep oiling it all day. Whew. Are you guys ready? This has been a crazy experience putting this countertop together, and I'm shocked that we're at the point where we're oiling it and it's done and it looks good. It was a little stressful, a little scary, definitely some learning experiences, some hurdles along the way. Can't wait to see how it looks oiled, and I hope it keeps laying flat, so let's get working. I'm really going to saturate this more so than I did on the bottom. Work it around. This is like where we want it to really
drench.
This is still dry. We're trying to really saturate it, so we want it pooling on top so it can really soak in.
Why is the heat set underneath?
Because look at, see the heat over here? The heat coming out of this, it makes shadows through the sun.
We got the first coat of oil on the counter. We're going to let that sit for a while. We'll come back later, add more, continue the process. It soaks in so much. We put a super saturating coat on there. I mean, I just kept loading it and it just goes away. While that's drying, we thought we'd talk about why we chose a butcherblock countertop. So when we were trying to design our kitchen, we were thinking about all different countertop styles. We were considering laminate, concrete, butcherblock, wood.
We know of all the other types like marble and
granite, tile, different things.
Yeah.
We weren't going to do granite or any kind of natural stone because we can't work with it. We're just DIY, and we're not going to pay somebody to set our countertop, and we just don't feel comfortable or even think we'd have the ability to.
And I don't even think it would go with our theme.
Yeah.
So
that was kind of out of the question just to begin with, plus cost. I think stone is usually pretty pricey.
yeah.
Laminate countertop is the obvious cheap one. We always have done laminate countertops before.
Because it's cheap.
The reason we didn't do it in this house is because we never like them. They are made of MDF. We're trying to avoid MDF because when it gets wet, it swells up, it gets ruined. They can last a long time if they're installed right. But we just wanted to try something new in this house and didn't want to settle for the basic laminate. Plus, we have almost 14 feet of counter space here, and we would have to we'd have to piece together 2 laminate tops, and it would have to be a custom piece to fit into the windowsill. It didn't seem like a realistic choice. We were actually going to go with concrete. We were really set on that. We were looking forward to concrete for a long time.
Basically, since we moved in, we thought we were going to do concrete.
Yeah, it's something we've wanted to try. It's really popular. People like it.
We were going to do a white one specifically.
We were going to do a white concrete countertop with a
wood-toned
base cabinets.
Yeah. And we were going to do white uppers.
Yeah, it was going to be totally different. We decided to scratch that whole idea for a number of reasons. You know, our plan is always changing, so we have all different things that we think of and change our mind later on. Concrete has its advantages, but we decided to go with butcherblock because, well, let me scratch off tile first. We've done a tile countertop before, and we found that it just wasn't practical for like rolling dough and doing things. The flour gets into the grout lines. We didn't like it. It's a nice countertop if you do it not right, but not for our purposes.
Yeah.
So we chose wood. We chose wood because it fits the theme of the house. We were doing a lot of natural wood in the house, and we felt like this is warmer and nicer than concrete.
It looks really good.
I feel like the concrete would almost be out of place here. The other reason is because maintenance is like almost identical to concrete as far as like oiling it, sealing it, and doing all this stuff. But the wood is more forgiving. You can repair it, you can sand it, and maintain it a little bit easier. The other thing that's cool about wood is that it's naturally antibacterial. You guys might not know that, but wood has antimicrobial, antibacterial properties. Bacteria just can't live on wood. It dies very quickly. It doesn't die on concrete. Concrete can actually hold bacteria. So a wood countertop should be safer and cleaner than a concrete countertop.
And all the other ones like laminate or composite.
Right. So even though people might think wood absorbs everything and it gets nasty, even if you cut up a chicken on your counter, which I wouldn't do anyway, but like...
Yeah, we use cutting boards.
All the bacteria and all the problems and the salmonella, anything you might have to worry about, will probably be dead by the next day. I forget the stats, but like most viruses and bacteria and all that stuff die on wood even within a few minutes, and then by the next day they're essentially gone. That's a really cool feature of wood. And that's why like wood butcher blocks or chopping boards, wood cutting boards are actually better than plastic cutting boards because plastic can hold bacteria and wood, it kills it. I think this was easier to work with than concrete. We were kind of dreading the mess.
Making the molds, mixing all the concrete,
you have to
pouring it in.
Mix it with the water, have plastic all over everything. We'd have it all over our kitchen. It would be a mess. I've seen some people do them, and it's a mess, a big mess. This was a little bit messy, but nothing close to doing concrete.
And this is lighter in weight.
So I kind of picture this, concrete and wood, being comparable.
Yeah.
Because they both need to be sealed and maintained. They're both like a DIY option, but the concrete is heavier, messier, and not...
Probably more expensive.
Yeah, they could be comparable. But again, the wood, it just looks better in our home, and it has the natural antibacterial properties, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to work with.
And it looks amazing.
We really love how the sill came out back here. Some people were worried that our window was too low, and it was low on purpose because of this. We just wanted the countertop to kind of run right in there. Really custom look. Gives you that extra space behind your sink. You can see we're going to have a nice big sink area. You'll have to wait and see how that comes out. And it just makes it feel like you're just going outside. It's just kind of smooth going up. We wanted it as flush as we could to the bottom of the window. The downfall is, like, if I wanted to pop this window out, it's going to be basically impossible. But how often do you do that? It's awesome looking. And then when we do our wood trim, it's all going to just be one solid just unit. It's going to look so cool. And we will be doing a backsplash also. We're still debating about exactly what we're doing, but we're thinking about carrying on the trim. So we do the window trim, and we'll probably just put a board on the wall continuing from the trim. So the backsplash will all be part of the trim work later on. I almost forgot epoxy countertops. We've had some suggestions to do epoxy. That's kind of a new fad that's happening right now where people are doing epoxy tables, epoxy countertops. They look really cool. They come out beautiful. I just don't know about the long-term durability of them. How long do they last? How well do they hold up? It's honestly not something we want to deal with because it's kind of like chemicals and plastic. We're trying to keep that out of the home. I feel like a essentially plastic countertop wouldn't fit the theme. I have nothing against them. I just don't think it was the right choice for this house. But that was also another option. It's just, again, I feel like this wood is really cool. I'm happy that we chose it. So I guess that's it for now. We're going to let this soak in. I'll come back maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. Put another coat on. We'll keep oiling it, like I said, all day until it doesn't want to take any more oil. We're going to saturate this thing. All right, I'm about to start my next coat. It's looking really good right now, though. So I think I just put the last coat of oil on. It's not really soaking in anymore. You can see the whole thing is kind of glossy. That means the surface is getting super saturated. It just doesn't want to take any more oil, and that's exactly what we want. I'm going to let this sit for a while, then I'm going to just rub it down with a rag, try to get off all the excess, and then it's done. It's more or less finished. So it won't have a glossy finish when it's done. It's going to look more flat, kind of natural looking, and that's fine. the oil is just wet right now, and that's why it looks that way. Tung oil is actually a hardening oil. You might not know that. So it doesn't just stay oily. After it cures over a week to a month, it actually hardens, and it'll become a very protective finish inside the wood, and that's going to be good. But still, it'll probably need maintenance over time as you wash it and use it. We'll condition it or use wax or use more oil to just keep the countertop looking fresh. But there it is. You can see this looks so good. I really went heavy around the sink. I want to make sure the wood is well protected. You can see my seam is looking pretty nice. Not too bad, really. So what do you think about the countertop experience?
I like it.
How was the process?
Stressful, but then we got it to work, so it's good now.
Definitely learned some things here. I still wonder if this countertop will be okay. I also wonder if I just left it alone, if it would go back to normal on its own over time. I think from what we've been reading, a lot of these butcher block countertops, they really should be flat. That's the nature of it. They're made to be flat. And if it's warped, it's not necessarily a defective piece of wood. It's rather a moisture imbalance from the top to the bottom. They've been sitting in our house for a number of weeks, so I don't know why there would have been an imbalance, but maybe if it was stacked off the ground and let to dry, it would have balanced out on its own. And I have put a level on here. I don't want to do it now because it's oily, and it's very flat around where the appliances and the sink will be sitting, so we're happy about that. We did get it to be nice.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to end it here finally. After days of work, a little bit of struggle, our countertops are in. It's going to have to sit for at least a week, probably more, before we put the sink and the stovetop in. And that seems crazy, but we're going to be patient with this. Because, for example, I cannot silicone the sink in
until that oil is set and hardened.
To be cured so that the silicone can actually stick. So we're just going to kind of let this sit and work on other projects for the time being.
Yep.
So feel free to leave your comments below. Tell us what you think of the project. And we'll have another video coming soon. So until next time, take care.
Bye.